Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Ulzzangmas. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 palettes of 2023. Now, here's the thing. All of these palettes I tried in 2023. They may not necessarily be new for 2023, but this was my first time actually trying them, so I did want to include them, in my ranking. As a whole, 2023 was kind of light for me, where like shopping and especially like purchasing palettes were concerned. I did purchase, a good number of palettes, but nothing close to what I have done in the past. So as far as like doing my ranking, there were not a whole lot of palettes that actually came out this year that just really stood out to me. But there were some that, came out in like maybe last year or the year before that I just picked up for the first time this year that really did stand out to me. And I'm pretty sure every single thing that I'm talking about is still available. As usual, if I can, I will have everything linked down below. Before we jump into our first palette, what do you guys think of these lashes? These are one of the new ones that I got from Temu, and I don't know, this is the first time I think I've worn lashes like this big and this fluttery. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Do they look like the shape fits with my eyes? Do they look like they're a little bit too big? Let me know down in the comments. I would definitely like to hear your opinions. All right, let's jump into our first palette. I do not have these in any particular order. It's hard enough for me to like narrow it down to 10, let alone ranking the 10, so I don't bother to do that. The first palette that we're going to be talking about is from ABH. I actually have two palettes in this ranking. This first palette, this one isn't necessarily new to the brand. It's just a mini version of a palette that they've had before, and it is the mini Sultry. I do not have the full Sultry. They also launched a mini Modern Renaissance, which I also grabbed as well. This is my first experience of both the Sultry and the Modern Renaissance, but I really love this palette. I think the mattes in here are just super buttery. They blend like a dream. The tones are more like neutral, cool leaning. I currently have this one in my Shop My Stash, and I'm probably going to pull it out and just leave it out for January as well. These shimmers are super creamy. They're super smooth. They just blend onto the eyelid like a dream. They're not like super glossy or super wet looking, but the just very kind of sultry, smoky look that it gives the eye, I think is absolutely beautiful. That is why it made it into my top 10. This next one is from BH Cosmetics. This one is not a new launch, not by any means. It's still available on the website. You can still pick it up, but this one came out, I think, like a couple of years ago. It is the Lost in Los Angeles palette. This is one of those palettes I had been eyeing for a while, and I just never picked it up, but then I got it as a free gift with purchase in an order. You got the Hollywood star up here, and then our color story. This is a really pretty, mostly pastel color story. The mattes in here, they're pigmented. Even though they are pastels, they are pigmented. They show up really, really well, on my eyelid, against my skin tone, which I absolutely love. I don't have to use like a lighter eye base to get these to work on me. And these shimmers, they're super creamy, super smooth, super wet looking. Just overall, I really have enjoyed using this palette. This next one. This is my first ever experience with ABH, if one can believe it. I've never used an ABH palette before, but I saw this one and I just had to get it. This is the Fall Romance. I keep this one in the box because I don't want the velvet to get all messed up. But this is our gorgeous velvet packaging. And then this is our gorgeous, just kind of fall holiday themed color story. These mattes are so buttery. They are so smooth. They just blend like a freaking dream with no effort whatsoever. These shimmers, they're so smooth, so creamy, so wet looking on the eye. You guys, I have loved playing with this palette so much. I have used it so much since I purchased it. It's perfect for the fall, perfect for the holidays. I will definitely be picking up some more ABH palettes going to 2024. This palette has just made me fall in love. I don't know if all the palettes in the brand are like this, but this was a gorgeous palette. This next one, I'm honestly not sure if it came out this year or last year, if I talked about it last year in a favorites or not. I cannot remember. I went and I looked on YouTube and I was looking at like my review and other videos and stuff, and I think it did come out this year, but I'm not positive. But it is the Blend Bunny Cosmetics Lure palette. If I talked about this one last year in a favorites or a ranking, I apologize, because like I said, I honestly cannot remember, but this is a palette that I have absolutely loved using this year either way. This palette is just a gorgeous siren, mermaid, just mystical themed palette. These shades, these tones. Now, when you look at it, you think, wow, some of these shades look very, very similar to each other, but when you actually put them on the eyelid, they are not. When I'm looking into like my monitor, like this column right here, these bottom two shades look very similar, but in person they're not. They are completely different. So I'm not sure what you guys are seeing. The Blend Bunny formula in general, I have always loved. The very first palette I ever picked up was the Blends palette, which is the all matte palette. And the matte formula from Blend Bunny in general is just stunning. This is such a beautiful palette. The shimmers are super wet looking, super creamy, super glossy, a little bit of sparkle going on. I love this palette. And then we have two palettes from Nomad Cosmetics. This first one, this is the Ghost Town USA. First of all, isn't that cool? Love the shifty holographic cover. The Halloween palette that came out, I think it was last year, the year before, also had that kind of holographic shift. But this is the color story. I freaking love the tones in this palette. These greens, these neutrals, these blues. All the shades in here are more neutral, cool leaning. You have some that look like they're warmer, but on the actual eyelid, they do lean more on the cool side, like even these over here. These shimmers are kind of like a newer formula to the brand. I noticed they were kind of like experimenting with different shimmer formulas throughout 2023. These have, I don't know if you can see it, there's like a little bit of a bounce to them, like they're really, really soft. So when you go to apply these and put your brush in there, you do want to be a little bit careful because they are delicate. But because of how soft they are, they just look so smooth and buttery and glossy and wet look on the eyelid. This is definitely one of my favorites from Nomad, just in general. The other palette from Nomad, this is the Royal Europe. I just love the paper cutout design of the cover. You may not be able to see it, but it's layered. And so it has like a little bit of texture to it. Nomad does such an excellent job with just the creativity of their palettes all together. I just love them as a brand. As many of you know, I was added to the Nomad PR list this year. Whether or not I was on the PR list or not, first of all, I'm grateful to be on the PR list. That was one of the things that I was hoping would happen when in 2022. But either way, I would still be buying the palettes because this is just one of my favorite indie brands of all time. So being on the PR list doesn't make a difference. I'm still honest about my opinions either way. But as you can see, this is a gorgeous palette of jewel toned reds and purples and blues. This shimmer formula, it is stunning. Definitely one of my favorites that Nomad has launched. I think this palette actually came out before the Ghost Town USA. This one actually may be a newer formula as well. These are multi-chromes. I had to like think about that so that I could remember, but these are either duo or multi-chromes, but they do have a shift. I'm going to go ahead and swatch a couple, like this one right here, Royal Orb. Hopefully you'll be able to see it when I actually like swatch it. Can you see? Yeah, you can see that. That blue, green. Oh my God. This formula was actually really, really pretty. This one was a newer formula this year. I don't think that they had anything like this before. Do you see that? Oof, stunning. Yeah, definitely in my top 10 this year. We have one palette from Colourpop. This is the only palette from Colourpop that I have in my ranking. When it comes to Colourpop in 2023, I didn't really buy that much. I bought very, very little from Colourpop as a brand just because of, you know, the last few years where they kind of went really crazy with their launches and they were launching like every 2 seconds. So I kind of lost interest with the brand. There's not a whole lot that they launched that just really excites me. So I bought very little in 2023. This palette, I loved it. I actually bought it later in the year. I think I picked this one up like maybe 2 or 3 months after it actually launched. But this is the Smokin Hot palette. As many of you know who have been with me for a while, I love orange. I love green. Those are my all-time favorite eyeshadow shades to use. Just my favorite like makeup in general. Like I love a good orange blush as well. And as you can see, this one is an array of oranges. There's some neutrals in here. There's some pinks in here. You have this stunning red right here that does blend out red on the eyelid. You know, a lot of times a red will blend out to pink, but this one does stay a nice red. And overall, I just think this is such a beautiful, you know, warm color story. This one would be gorgeous in the fall. This one would be gorgeous in the summer. I'll definitely be pulling it back out in the summer a lot. And the shimmers in here are really, really pretty too. It's not like the most groundbreaking palette that Colourpop has ever launched because they have launched a lot, but I did enjoy it. I really loved pulling out this palette. This next palette is also from Blend Bunny, and this one did come out this year. This is the Sugar and Grunge. This was a 90s lover's dream. It is a 90s themed palette. I think it is beautiful. This is our color story. We have those like grungy, tones here. There's just the tones that you think of when you think of the 90s, and some of the shade names are like very 90s too. We have flannel, runway, teen spirit, combat boots, garage bands. There's also like a lot of 90s theming as far as the names of the shades are concerned as well. These shimmers, as usual for Blend Bunny, they're absolutely stunning. We have one palette from Ace Beaute, and this is not a new launch. I think this came out either 2 or 3 years ago. It's probably one of the first actually, I think it was 2 years ago. 2021, I think, is when this palette came out, but this is the Tropical Vibes palette. Looking at this color story, I think many of you can see why I loved it so much. I love grungy green tones, grungy yellows, mustardy type shades, just these very like foresty type greens. Oh my god, this palette is stunning. This is, I think, my second experience with Ace Beaute. I did have the Nostalgia palette that I got out of a BoxyCharm, but that was the older formula, which I didn't like that much. I'd have decluttered that one already. I think I decluttered that one last year. But this one is their new reformulated, version, their formulated formula, and I love it. The mattes are very smooth, they're very buttery, they're very pigmented, but not super pigmented. You can easily build them. You can easily, blend them out. The shimmers are very, very creamy and smooth and shiny. The only thing that I will say about this palette that I do feel like I wish it had more of was shimmers. There's only like 3 shimmers in this palette. This one, and this one. Everything else in the palette is a matte. I do wish there was a more kind of even ratio of matte to shimmer, but other than that, it's a stunning palette. We are down to our very last palette in our top 10. And like I said, I didn't rank any of these in any particular order, so this is not necessarily like my favorite palette of the top 10. This is just the last one we're going to be talking about, and this is actually a full portfolio. This is the Artistry portfolio from Profusion. This whole thing was $25. It's one of those things that I wasn't sure about picking up, but then I saw it in person at Walmart, and I was like, yeah, we're going to get this. We're going to give this a try, and I'm so glad that I did. Let's see if we can get the full thing in the frame. Everything over here, these are all eyeshadows, and the formula is so smooth. It blends out like a dream. I didn't have any problems whatsoever using the eyeshadow formula over here. As far as the mattes, and the shimmers were really pretty too. They're not the most glossiest, wet looking shimmer, but just for like an everyday kind of a sultry, smoky look that you maybe want to put together, I think it's perfect. On this side, the top row, these are correctors and concealers, and then you have water activated liners in the second row. That was my first experience with a water activated liner, and I had so much fun. I don't know if a water activated liner is something that I'm just really going to continue to explore, but it was fun, considering it was my first time ever doing it. I did have fun with it. You have highlighters in here, you have bronzers, I'm trying to like point, and then like blushes on the bottom. Just overall, this was such a good palette. If you're someone that's new to makeup and you're just kind of starting out, you're kind of a beginner, this is perfect for a beginner. I thought it was just a gorgeous palette. It was like $25. Very affordable too. And that is it. Those are my top palettes for 2023. Like I said, some of these were new to 2023. Some of them came out before, but they were like my first time ever using them. But overall, of all the palettes that I've used in 2023 in general that have just come into my collection, old or new, these were the ones that I love the most. Definitely let me know down in the comments what have been some of your favorite launches for 2023. I love, hearing from you guys. I love hearing your favorites, hearing your opinions. So definitely sound off in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help with getting my videos into recommendations. If you're new to the channel, you're not already subscribed, I would love it if you consider joining my little family and hitting subscribe. Make sure you tap the bell so you don't miss a thing. And you can also follow me on my other socials. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.